The mirror in her bedroom had seen many tears, but today it reflected something different. Lisa stood there, adjusting her favorite blue dress one more time before her first date in months. At 28, she had finally decided it was time to put herself out there again. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, Lisa had always been the girl who didn't quite fit the mold. While her friends were shopping in the junior section, she was learning to love herself in sizes that fashion magazines never seemed to celebrate. Her mother, though well-meaning, would often suggest maybe we should try that new diet everyone's talking about, or wouldn't you feel more confident if you lost just a few pounds? But Lisa had something many people didn't, a heart full of dreams and a mind sharp enough to chase them. She graduated from college with a marketing degree, packed her bags, and moved to the bustling city of Denver. The mountains called to her, and she felt like this was where her real life would begin. For the first 3 years, she threw herself into work. She climbed the corporate ladder faster than anyone expected, earning respect from colleagues who valued her creativity and dedication. Her apartment was small but cozy, filled with plants and books that made her feel at home. Life was good, but something was missing. That something was love. Lisa watched her friends get married, start families, and share those little moments that made life feel complete. She wanted that too. She wanted someone to share Sunday morning coffee with, someone to call when she had good news, someone who would think she was beautiful even on her worst days. So she decided to try, really try. Her best friend Amy had been encouraging her for months. "You're amazing, Lisa. You're funny, you're smart, you're successful. Any guy would be lucky to have you." Amy had been her college roommate, and the one person who truly understood Lisa's journey with self-acceptance. The world of modern dating felt like stepping into a foreign country. Dating apps with their endless swiping, carefully crafted profiles, and the pressure to capture your entire personality in a few photos and witty lines. Lisa spent hours choosing the right pictures, ones that showed her genuine smile, her love. For hiking, her professional success. Her first few matches seemed promising. There was the accountant who loved hiking just like she did. They texted for days about their favorite trails and planned to meet for coffee. Then there was the teacher, who shared her passion for books and sent her thoughtful messages about his favorite novels. Each conversation filled her with hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe she had found someone who would see past the surface and appreciate the person she really was. But dating in the real world proved different from chatting online. The accountant showed up to their coffee date. Took one. Looked at her and suddenly remembered he had an urgent work call. He disappeared after 10 minutes. Leaving Lisa sitting alone with 2 untouched lattes growing cold, the teacher never showed up at all. She waited at the restaurant for an hour, checking her phone every few minutes, wondering if she had gotten the time wrong or the place wrong. Later that night, she found she had been blocked on the dating app. Each disappointment stung. But Lisa told herself these were just the wrong people. The right person would appreciate her for who she was. She had to believe that. Her therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, helped her process these experiences during their weekly sessions. "Remember, Lisa, rejection says more about their limitations than your worth," she would say. But even with professional guidance, each failed connection chipped away at her confidence. The worst part wasn't even the rejections themselves. It was the way some people looked at her when they first met in person. That split second of disappointment that flashed across their faces before they remembered to be polite. That moment when she could see them mentally calculating how to escape the situation as quickly as possible. Lisa started keeping a journal, not to wallow in self-pity, but to process her feelings and remind herself of her worth. She wrote about her accomplishments at work, the friends who loved her unconditionally, and the life she had built for herself. She reminded herself that she was more than what others saw on the surface. Amy would come over with ice cream and wine after particularly tough dates, and they would laugh about the absurdity of it all. "Remember that guy who asked if you had any fit friends he could meet instead?" Amy would say, making Lisa giggle despite the painful memory. What a loser. His loss completely. At work, Lisa threw herself into a major campaign for a fitness brand that celebrated all body types. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was creating advertising that promoted self-love while struggling with her own dating life. But the project reminded her of something important. There were millions of people who looked like her, who deserved love and representation. The campaign was a huge success, earning Lisa a promotion and recognition in the industry. Standing in the conference room, presenting two executives who hung on her every word, she felt powerful and accomplished. But when she went home to her empty apartment, the loneliness crept back in. She began to wonder if she was asking for too much. Maybe she should lower her standards. Settle for someone who wasn't actively mean to her, even if they weren't enthusiastic about her either. Maybe this was just how dating worked for someone like her. But deep down, Lisa knew she deserved more. She deserved someone who would light up when they saw her, someone who would choose her not despite her body, but as a complete package of everything she had to offer as she prepared for another first date. Looking at herself in that same bedroom mirror, Lisa made a promise to herself. She would keep trying, but she wouldn't settle for less than she deserved. Somewhere out there was someone who would see her the way she was learning to see herself, as perfectly imperfect and completely worthy of love. What started as a few disappointing dates quickly turned into something much worse. Lisa found herself living through the same painful cycle over and over again. Match with someone promising, have great conversations, meet in person, then watch their face change the moment they saw her. The third rejection came from a lawyer named Kevin. They had talked for 2 weeks about everything from favorite movies to career goals. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. When they finally met at a downtown cafe, his smile faded the moment he spotted her at their table. "Oh, you're Lisa," he said, his voice flat. The enthusiasm from their phone conversations was completely gone. He sat down reluctantly, kept checking his watch, and made excuses about an early morning meeting. 20 minutes later, he was gone, leaving Lisa with a half-eaten sandwich and a crushing sense of disappointment. But Lisa wasn't ready to give up. She told herself Kevin was just the wrong person. There had to be someone out there who would appreciate her for who she was. Date number 7 was with a software engineer named Ryan. This time, Lisa thought she had learned from her mistakes. She made sure her photos were recent and showed her full figure. She was honest about her size in their conversations. Ryan seemed cool with everything, even saying he preferred women with curves. They met at a local brewery and the conversation flowed easily. Lisa started to relax, thinking maybe this was it. They talked about travel, shared funny work stories, and even made plans for a second date. But when Ryan walked her to her car, he gave her an awkward side hug and said he'd call her soon. Never did. Days turned into weeks, and Lisa's messages went unanswered. She had been ghosted, and it hurt worse than an outright rejection. At least Kevin had been honest, even if it was painful. The pattern continued. Date after date, rejection. After rejection, some guys were direct about it, others just disappeared. A few were downright cruel. There was the personal trainer who spent their entire dinner talking about his workout routine and suggesting meal plans she should try. There was the accountant who asked if she had considered weight loss surgery. There was the marketing executive who told her she had such a pretty face and could be really attractive if she just lost some weight. Each rejection felt like a personal attack. But Lisa kept trying. She started seeing Dr. Rodriguez twice a week instead of once. She joined a support group for people struggling with body image issues. She read self-help books and listened to podcasts about self-love and confidence. Amy watched her best friend go through this torture and tried to intervene. "Maybe you should take a break from dating," she suggested during one of their wine nights. "Focus on yourself for a while." But Lisa was stubborn. She had convinced herself that giving up would mean admitting defeat. She would find someone who appreciated her, no matter how long it took. The rejections kept coming, each one more creative than the last. There was the guy who said he only dated women who could keep up with his active lifestyle, implying she couldn't. There was the one who said he was looking for someone who shared his passion for healthy living. There was even one who said he needed a partner who would inspire him to be his best self. whatever that meant. By rejection number 12. Lisa had developed a thick skin, or so she thought. This one came from a guy named Brad who worked in finance. He had seemed different from the others, more mature and thoughtful. They had incredible conversations about books, politics, and life goals. When they met for dinner, Lisa felt genuinely excited for the first time in months. The date went well, or so she thought. They laughed together, shared dessert, and talked, until the restaurant started closing around them. Brad walked her to her car and even kissed her goodnight. Lisa drove home feeling like she was floating on air. The next morning, she woke up to a long text message that made her stomach drop. Brad thanked her for a lovely evening, but said he had to be honest about something. He said she was wonderful, but not his physical type. He said he needed to be attracted to his partner and hoped she would understand. Lisa sat in her bed, reading the message over and over again. The worst part wasn't even the rejection itself. It was the hope she had felt the night before, the belief that maybe this time would be different. She called in sick to work that day and spent hours on her couch, questioning everything about herself. Was she delusional to think someone could love her as she was? Was she asking for too much? Maybe her mother had been right all those years ago. Maybe she should have tried harder to fit society's expectations. Dr. Rodriguez helped her work through these dark thoughts during their next session. Your worth isn't determined by whether someone wants to date you, she reminded Lisa. You are valuable exactly as you are. But the rejections kept coming. Number 13, 14, 15. Each one chipped away at her confidence a little more. Lisa started avoiding mirrors, declining invitations to social events, and throwing herself into work as a distraction. Her colleagues noticed the change. Lisa, who had always been the life of the office, became quiet and withdrawn. She still did excellent work, but the spark that made her such a joy to be around seemed to be dimming. Amy grew more worried with each passing week. She watched her vibrant, successful, amazing best friend slowly losing herself to the cruel world of modern dating. Please, Lisa, she begged. You're letting these losers destroy you. Take a break. Focus on the people who already love you. Lisa had become obsessed with proving to herself that she was lovable. Each rejection felt like evidence that something was fundamentally wrong with her, and she was determined to find someone who would prove otherwise. She had no idea that her biggest heartbreak was still coming, or that it would ultimately lead her to the love she had been searching for all along. By the time rejection number 16 rolled around, Lisa had built walls around her heart so high that she barely felt the sting anymore. Or at least that's what she told herself. The truth was, each disappointment had left a mark, and she was running out of hope. But then came Alex. Alex was different from the start. He was a history teacher at a local high school, and their conversations had depth that Lisa hadn't experienced with anyone else. They talked about everything from ancient civilizations to modern politics, from favorite childhood memories to dreams for the future. He made her laugh with his stories about teenage students and their hilarious attempts to avoid homework. What struck Lisa most was how Alex listened. Really listened.
When she told him about her marketing campaigns, he asked thoughtful questions.
When she mentioned her love for hiking, he wanted to know about her favorite trails. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, her opinions, her life. They had been talking for 3 weeks when Alex suggested meeting for coffee. Lisa felt that familiar flutter of excitement mixed with dread. She had been here before, 16 times to be exact, but something about Alex felt different. Maybe it was the way he remembered small details from their conversations, or how he always asked about her day at work. The night before their date, Lisa stood in front of her closet. For an hour, she tried on outfit after outfit, each one making her feel either too casual or too formal, too revealing or too covered up. Finally, she settled on a simple green dress that Amy had bought her for her birthday. It was comfortable and made her feel confident. She arrived at the coffee shop early and chose a table near the window. Her hands were shaking slightly as she scrolled through her phone, trying to calm her nerves. When Alex walked through the door, she recognized him immediately from his photos. He was tall, with kind eyes and a warm smile that reached all the way across the room. "Lisa?" he he asked, approaching her table. When she nodded, his smile grew even wider. It's so great to finally meet you in person. They talked for 2 hours straight. Alex was even more engaging in person than he had been over text. He told her funny stories about his students, asked about her latest work projects, and shared his passion for historical documentaries. Lisa found herself relaxing completely, forgetting all about her usual first date anxiety. When it was time to leave, Alex walked her to her car. I had such a wonderful time today, he said, and Lisa could tell he meant it. Would you like to do this again? Maybe dinner next time? Lisa's heart soared. I'd love that, she said, trying not to sound too eager. They planned their second date. For the following Friday, Alex suggested a cozy Italian restaurant downtown, and Lisa spent the week looking forward to it. She even caught herself humming at work, something she hadn't done in months. The second date was even better than the first. They shared pasta and talked about their families, their college experiences, and their hopes for the future. Alex told her about his dream to write a historical novel someday. Lisa shared her secret ambition to start her own marketing agency. You should definitely do it, Alex encouraged her. From everything you've told me, you have the skills and the vision. What's holding you back? Lisa felt seen in a way she hadn't experienced before. Here was someone who believed in her dreams, who saw her potential. They made plans for a third date. Lisa went home feeling like she was walking on clouds. The third date turned into a fourth, then a fifth. They went to museums, tried new restaurants, and took long walks through the city. Alex never once made Lisa feel self-conscious about her body. He complimented her intelligence, her sense of humor, her kindness. He seemed genuinely interested. In getting to know her as a person, Amy noticed the change in her best friend immediately. You're glowing, she said during one of their coffee dates. This Alex guy must be pretty special. He is, Lisa said, unable to hide her smile. Amy, I think this might be it. I think he might be the one. For 6 weeks, Lisa felt like she was living in a fairy tale. Alex introduced her to his friends, and she did the same. They started making plans for the future, talking about taking a weekend trip together, meeting each other's families. Then came the night that changed everything. They were having dinner at their favorite. It's a restaurant. When Alex's phone buzzed, he glanced at it and his expression changed. Oh, I'm sorry, he said, looking uncomfortable. This girl. Friend is here with some friends. She just texted me. Lisa looked around and spotted a tall, thin woman across the restaurant. She was exactly the type of person Lisa had always felt invisible next to, the kind of woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine. She's beautiful, Lisa said, trying to keep her voice light. Alex glanced over at his ex, then back at Lisa. Something in his eyes had shifted. Yeah, she is, he said quietly. The rest of dinner felt different. Alex seemed distracted, and Lisa caught him looking over at his ex's table more than once. When they left the restaurant, he was quieter than usual. The next few days were torture. Alex's texts became shorter and less frequent. Their phone calls went from hours to minutes. Lisa could feel him pulling away, but she didn't know why. The end came exactly 1 week later, delivered through a text message that Lisa would never forget. Lisa, I need to be honest with you. You're an amazing person, and any guy would be lucky to have you, but I think we're looking for different things. Hope you understand. I wish you all the best. Lisa stared at the message for a long time. After everything they had shared, after all those conversations about the future, after 6 weeks of what felt like genuine connection, it was over. Just like that, she called Amy, sobbing so hard she could barely speak. I thought he was different, she cried. I really thought this was it. That night, Lisa sat in her apartment and made a decision. She was done. 17 rejections were enough. She deleted every dating app from her phone and decided to focus on herself. Maybe love just wasn't meant for her, and that was okay. Would build a life she loved, with or without a partner. She had no idea that her 18th chance at love was just around the corner. 3 months had passed since Lisa deleted all her dating apps. 3 months of focusing on herself, her work, and rediscovering who she was outside of the exhausting world of modern romance. She had thrown herself into a major project at work, started taking pottery classes on weekends, and even planned a solo trip to Portland for a marketing conference. The morning she left for Portland, Amy hugged her goodbye at the airport. "I'm so proud of you," her best friend said. "Look how much stronger you've become." Lisa smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. She had learned to enjoy her own company again, as the constant anxiety about finding someone had lifted, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. Portland was beautiful in early fall. The conference was going well, and Lisa found herself genuinely excited about new ideas and strategies she was learning. On her last afternoon there, she decided to explore the famous Powell's Books, the massive bookstore she had heard so much about. Walking through the endless rows of books felt like being in a literary heaven. Lisa picked up a few novels she had been wanting to read and headed to the small cafe inside the store. She found a quiet corner table, ordered a lavender latte, and settled in with her favorite book from home, the one she always traveled with. She was completely absorbed in reading when someone approached her table. "Excuse me? Is anyone sitting there?" a voice asked. Lisa looked up to see a man about her age, holding a coffee cup and looking slightly nervous. The cafe had gotten crowded while she was reading, and most tables were full. "No, go ahead," she said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. "Thank you so much. I'm David, by the way." David was not what most people would call traditionally handsome. He was shorter than the men Lisa usually dated, wore glasses that were slightly too big for his face, and had a nervous energy about him. But when he smiled, something about it made Lisa's heart skip just a little. "I'm Lisa," she replied, closing her book but keeping her finger on the page. "What are you reading?" David asked, genuinely curious. Lisa showed him the cover, and his eyes lit up. "No way. That's one of my favorite books. I've read it at least 5 times." What started as a polite conversation between strangers sharing a table turned into something much more. They talked about books, about travel, about their jobs. David was a nurse at a children's hospital back in his hometown, and the way he talked about his young patients made Lisa's heart melt. "I love working with kids," he said, his face glowing with passion. "They're so honest and brave. Yesterday, this little girl told me my glasses made me look like Harry Potter, but in a good way." Lisa found herself laughing more than she had in months. David had a way of finding humor in everyday situations, without being mean or sarcastic. He was gentle and kind and completely different from any man she had ever met. Hours passed without either of them noticing that the cafe began to empty as evening approached, but they kept talking. David told her about his love for cooking, his terrible singing voice, his dream of traveling to every national park in the country. Lisa shared stories about her marketing campaigns, her pottery classes, and her recent decision to focus on herself instead of dating. "That sounds really wise," David said, when she mentioned swearing off dating. "I actually did the same thing about 6 months ago. I got tired of people not seeing the real me." There was something in the way he said it that made Lisa look at him more closely. Behind his glasses, his eyes held a sadness that felt familiar. "What do you mean?" she asked gently. David hesitated, then smiled sadly. "I know I'm not what most people are looking for. I'm not tall, I'm not traditionally attractive, and I have this nervous stutter when I get anxious. Dating apps were pretty brutal for someone like me." Lisa felt her heart clench. Here was someone who understood exactly what she had been through, just from a different angle. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "People can be really cruel." "Yeah, but you know what? I realize that the right person won't make me feel like I need to change everything about myself. They'll appreciate me for who I am." As the bookstore prepared. "Too close." David looked disappointed. "I guess we should probably head out," he said reluctantly. Lisa didn't want the conversation to end. For the first time in months, she had met someone who made her feel comfortable and understood. "Would you maybe want to get dinner?" she heard herself asking. "I mean, if you don't have other plans." David's face lit up with the biggest smile she had seen from him all afternoon. "I would love that. I know a great little place, just a few blocks from here." They walked through the Portland streets together, and Lisa marveled at how easy everything felt. There was no pressure, no anxiety about impressing him, or wondering if he would find her attractive. They were just two people enjoying each other's company. Dinner was even better than their afternoon at the bookstore. Talked about their families, their fears, their hopes for the future. David told her about his struggles with confidence, and how he had learned to love the work he did even when dating made him feel invisible. "You're not invisible," Lisa said firmly. "You're one of the most interesting people I've talked to in years." David blushed and looked down at his plate. "You're pretty amazing yourself. I can't believe you're single by choice. Any guy would. Be lucky to be with you." The sincerity in his voice made Lisa's eyes well up with tears. When was the last time someone had said something like that to her and actually meant it? As the evening wound down, they exchanged phone numbers. David was flying back to his hometown the next morning, and Lisa was leaving Portland too. But something had shifted between them, something neither wanted to let go of. "Can I call you when I get home?" David asked, as they stood outside the restaurant. "I'd really like that," Lisa replied. For the first time in her life, Lisa had met someone who didn't make her feel like too much or not enough. She felt like she was exactly right, just as she was. The phone call came exactly when David said it would, the day after Lisa returned from Portland. Hearing his voice again made her heart race in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. "I keep thinking about our conversation at the bookstore," he said, and Lisa could hear the smile in his voice. "I haven't been able to concentrate on anything since yesterday." The next 2 months, they talked every single day. Long phone calls that stretched late into the night, text messages that made Lisa laugh out loud during work meetings, and video calls where they would cook dinner together despite being in different cities. David lived in a small town about 4 hours from Denver, working at the children's hospital where he had been for 3 years. Lisa learned that he had grown up there, taking care of his elderly grandmother until she passed away the year before. He had stayed in the town because the hospital needed him, and he couldn't bear to leave the kids he had grown so attached to. "There's this little boy," Tyler, David told her during one of their late-night calls. "He's been in and out of the hospital for months, and he always asks when I'm working. Yesterday he drew me a picture of us playing video games together. It's hanging on my refrigerator right now." Lisa fell in love with David's compassion first, then with his terrible jokes that somehow always made her laugh. Then, with the way he remembered every little detail she shared about her life. "How was your pottery class today?" he would ask. "Or did your boss approve that campaign idea you were nervous about?" No one had ever paid attention to her life like this. David made her feel seen and valued in ways she had never experienced. After 2 months of long-distance friendship that felt like something much deeper, David said the words Lisa had been hoping to hear. "I know this is crazy," he said during one of their video calls, "but I think I'm falling in love with you." Lisa's heart stopped. "That's not crazy at all," she whispered, "because I think I'm falling in love with you too." The next weekend, David drove 4 hours to Denver to see her. Lisa was more nervous than she had been for any first date. But when she opened her apartment door and saw his familiar smile, all her anxiety melted away. They spent the weekend exploring the city together, hiking in the mountains, and talking about everything and nothing. David fit into Lisa's life like he had always belonged there. Amy loved him immediately, and even Lisa's coworkers noticed how happy she seemed when David called during lunch breaks. "You're different," Amy said after meeting David for the first time. "You're like the person you were in college, but even happier." Over the next few months, David and Lisa took turns visiting each other. He showed her around his small town, introduced her to his coworkers at the hospital, and took her to all his favorite local spots. Lisa brought him to family dinners in Denver, where her parents were charmed by his kindness and genuine interest in everyone around him. Her mother, who had spent years making comments about Lisa's weight, pulled her aside after one dinner. "Looks at you like you're the most beautiful woman in the world," she said quietly. "Never seen anyone look at you like that before." Lisa had never seen anyone look at her like that either. When David looked at her, she saw love, desire, and complete acceptance. He never once suggested she'd change anything about herself. Instead, he seemed to delight in everything that made her who she was. 6 months after they met, David made a decision that changed everything. He applied for a position at a children's hospital in Denver. "I can't imagine my life without you. In it every day," he told Lisa when he got the job. "Plus, Tyler drew me another picture. This one shows all three of us together," and he wrote David's girlfriend with an arrow pointing to a stick figure with long hair. "I think he approves." The morning David officially moved to Denver, Lisa helped him unpack boxes in his new apartment. As they arranged his books next to hers on the shelf, she marveled at how perfectly their lives seemed to fit together. A year later, David proposed in the most perfectly imperfect way possible. They were making breakfast together in Lisa's kitchen when he suddenly got down on one knee, still holding a spatula covered in pancake batter. "Lisa," he said, his voice shaking with nerves and excitement, "you make me want to be the best version of myself every single day. You're funny and smart and kind and absolutely perfect exactly as you are. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple and beautiful, nothing like the elaborate proposals Lisa had imagined in her younger days. But it was perfect because it was theirs. "Yes," she said through happy tears. "Of course, yes." Their wedding was small and intimate, filled with the people who had supported them through their individual journeys to finding each other. In her vows, Lisa spoke about the 17 rejections that had broken her heart, but ultimately led her to the 18th chance that changed her life. "David, you didn't just accept me as I am," she said, looking into his eyes as tears streamed down both their faces. "You celebrated me, made me understand that I was never too much of anything. I was just waiting for someone who could love all of me." 2 years later, Lisa and David were still madly in love. They had bought a house together, adopted a rescue dog named Buster, and built a life filled with laughter, love, and the kind of partnership Lisa had always dreamed of, but never believed she would find. Sometimes, late at night, Lisa would think about those 17 rejections and feel grateful for every single one. Each no had been leading her to the yes that mattered most. The yes that came from someone who saw her completely and loved her exactly as she was. Love had been worth the wait after all.